Welcome back to Learn Astrology with Mary. My name's Mary English. You can find me at www.maryenglish.com, maryenglish.co.uk and UK Astrologer. Hello, I hope you're well. Now, today I'm going to be quoting, and this episode is prompted by somebody who I follow and I've mentioned more than once, and his name's Eckhart Tolle. It's not about him. It's about what he makes clear in some of his teachings, is that the right word? And he talks about his life, he talks about your life, our life, versus our life situation. And I'm going to quote for a little thing that he wrote in his socials, which is: forget about your life situation and pay attention to your life. Your life situation exists in time. Your life is now. Your life situation is mind stuff. Your life is real. So in this little quote, he's making the difference between life and life situation. And I would have thought that everybody who's interested in astrology, and even if they could only do a teeny bit, will be able to differentiate between their life, who they are, how they feel, what it's all about, and the things that are happening to them, if all you consider is your natal chart and your transits. So I personally think astrologers have been given the answer to life, the universe and everything, because we can dissect our chart down to the nth degree and find out this and that, and invariably people go through their chart and say, oh, I don't like this here, or I don't like that planet there, or I wish I didn't have this. When you get to a state of acceptance of your chart, that's just who I am and represents who I am. You're released from the worries or the thoughts that you might have ever had. And astrology isn't an end point. You don't get to some sudden place where you wake up one day and go, oh, I know absolutely everything now, because you don't know everything ever. You only know as much as you know at that moment in time, and do the best with what it is you know. Now, we're going to use a chart example, obviously, because I'm not going to do a whole episode just on life versus life situation, because I think you can probably grasp that. But the chart that I'm going to use to demonstrate that is, if you're British, you might have heard of her. And we're going to use the chart of, she's now a Dame Judi Dench. Now, I messed around with the chart quite a bit because I haven't got obviously because she's born in the UK, I haven't got a chart. Sorry, I haven't got a time of birth. I've constructed the chart as equal house, and I've used 9:30 in the evening, which gives her a Leo ascendant. And I would have thought, considering that she's up for most things and is quite a sort of a bouncy individual, I would have thought she's got a Leo ascendant, but don't quote me on that. But we can see in her chart the signs that things are in. And if we ignore even the Leo ascendant, we can get a deep understanding of who this person is. And I think that she totally has accepted who she is. Now, I'm not going to read everything on the Wikipedia page because I'm sure it must be boring for you hearing me reading things out loud that you could probably go off and find yourself. But there's one bit on there that she says, and she's talking about getting older because she's born in 1934 and she's not a spring chicken. And she's talking about, it says here, Dench has been an outspoken critic of prejudice in the movie industry against older actresses. She stated in 2014, "I don't want to be told I'm too old to try something. I want to see for myself if I can do it, rather than be told you might have a fall or you can't learn your lines. Age is a number. It's something imposed on you. It drives me absolutely spare when people say, are you going to retire? Isn't it time you put your feet up? Or tell me my age." And there's a little bit about health in 2012. She discussed macular degeneration. She's got one eye wet and one eye dry, and she's had to have people read her scripts to her. And then in 2024, which was last year, it was reported that her eyesight had deteriorated to the point where she's effectively retired from acting, but we'll see. So what is it about her chart or about her as a person, that gives her that drive, that allows her to get through a number of tragedies in her life? So one of which, let me just go back to so this is on Astro Data Bank. It says, yes, so she shared her London home with her daughter Tara Cressida Francis Akafinti, born in 1972, and her grandson, born in 1997, and she cared for both her own mother and in-laws in their older years. And she was married to Michael Williams. They had a 30-year relationship that lasted until his death of lung cancer in January 2001. So there has been tragedy in her life, and she's managed to overcome it. And don't know if she has moaned. I don't think she's moaned about looking after her in-laws. I don't think there's much written about that. So this is on Astro Data Bank. It's not on her Wikipedia page because too many people edit it and take things out. So, and luckily at Astro Data Bank they don't do so much. And she started work in 1957. So we're not specifically going to look at transits, but we're going to look at, and we're going to analyse the signs that her planets are in, and does that add to a strength of character, or does it lessen it? And if it were to lessen it, what has this person done or not done to be able to make it better or worse? Now, Astro Data Bank has got her time of birth as being, well, they've just used 12 o'clock lunchtime, that's what they use as a default, which gives her moon in Capricorn. And I did 9:30 to give her a Leo ascendant at 25 degrees, and the moon is still 29 degrees Capricorn. If she was born much after 9:30, then she'd have moon in Aquarius, and she doesn't really seem to me to be a person with moon in Aquarius. I think moon in Capricorn rather fits. Now, moon in Capricorn people are much more stoic about emotional things that do or don't happen. They less likely to falter when adverse things happen. The sun and the moon are not going to make any aspects because the sun is 17 degrees and Capricorn and Sagittarius are adjacent signs of the zodiac, so they'll never form a degree. And even if her moon were in Aquarius, the degree that the moon would never be able to form an aspect between that either. So we definitely have somebody whose moon doesn't aspect their sun sign. So consequently, the moon in her chart is at 9:30 even. It forms an opposition to Pluto, which I think is probably more the case than not. You know, like if the moon didn't go to an opposition to Pluto, where else could the moon do? The moon is sextiling Mercury. It's square to Uranus. This is at 29 degrees Capricorn. What else is it's trine to Mars, because she's got Mars 29 degrees in Virgo. And Mars is energy, and she seems to have plenty of that. So I'm not saying that this chart's totally correct. I'm just justifying why I've chosen that time. But let's just go through what she's got in what sign. So she's got Sun, Saggy, Moon, Cappy, and I have got a number of clients that have got that actually. Mercury, Saggy, Venus, Saggy, Mars, Virgo, 29 degrees, regardless of time of birth. Jupiter, 12 degrees Scorpio, Saturn 23 degrees Aquarius, Uranus 27 Aries, Neptune 14 Virgo, Pluto 25 degrees Cancer. The North Node is 1 degrees Aquarius, and Chiron is 6 degrees into Gemini. So the biggest aspect she's got on the outer planets is Uranus is square Pluto And that's a generational thing. So Uranus is in the sign of Aries. So she's already had her Uranus return. So she's past that. So that's already happened. And that square she's got in her chart between Uranus and Pluto is a generational thing. So everybody in a year at school would have had that. So Uranus is about freedom. It's retrograde in the sign of Aries. So I want freedom to lead in some way. And Pluto retrograde in Cancer, there's going to be lots of deep stuff going on within the family, so transformations, etc. On the family front, what other major aspects has she got? Sun square Neptune. Now that's regardless of time of day, and that probably helps her by the job that she's got. So somebody with the sun in a square to Neptune is going to be more imaginative. Whether or not they believe their imaginations is a different thing altogether, but they'll have the capability to be imaginative, which I would have thought is pretty helpful in the work that she does, which is acting. Neptune makes a nice aspect to her ruling planet Jupiter, which is in Scorpio. Mars is square to Venus, but she married, and she was married for 30 years, so that didn't cause a problem. And the most amount of squares actually are Sun square Neptune, Mercury square Neptune, and Venus are all square into Neptune. But again, because you don't live in the real world to be an actor, you've got to live in somebody else's head to be able to do those parts. I don't think that's a bad thing to have. Now, she also mentions in her Wikipedia page that she was, I think she was born a Quaker. Hold on. No, she wasn't born one, but she attended a Quaker school, the Mount School, a Quaker independent secondary school in York, and became a Quaker. So she's had, which is very important for Sagittarius, she's had her faith throughout her life, and that, in my personal opinion, I think helps people, especially when they hit a hard patch. I think that helps them quite a bit. Yes, so she's still a Quaker. Quakers do this thing where they're just quiet. Gordon Bennett, I could never be a Quaker. Can you imagine? I can meditate, but they do this thing where they all sit together and nobody speaks. I suppose actually it might be quite interesting. Yeah, I'd never go on a silent retreat. I think I'd be challenged to do that. I'd be so tempted to ask questions. If we're doing the 9:30 in the evening birth time, the moon is then square to Uranus, but I don't know. I've only guessed the time, so I'm not saying that's a definite aspect. And Saturn forms a nice aspect to Uranus. It's a sextile. And Saturn forms a nice aspect to the Sun. That's a sextile as well, because Saturn's in Aquarius. And in fact, Saturn's very happy being in the sign of Aquarius. Now, she hasn't got any other planets that are in their natural domicile homes. No, none of the other planets are, but apart from Saturn. So her chart shape is a splay, because the planets are unevenly around the circle, but they are all around the circle. And there's 3 planets in Saggy. So she's got 3 in Saggy, 2 in Virgo. Yeah. But everything's all around the circle in some way. Now, the point I want to make with this chart is that she has had, it's a stressful life being an actress or an actor. You never know where your next bit to work is going to come along. And you've just got to make friends with zillions of people and hope they bring you the work you want. There's lots of different ways, obviously, of acting and being an actor. But you've got to at least be alert to what's going on in your field. But if we ignore what she's done for a living and we just take that chart into account, the signs that it's in, it isn't an overly stressed chart. There are some squares, but there are also sextiles and trines. And this is something to definitely look at in your own chart and when you're working with clients' charts. If you see a chart that is just squares, and it can certainly happen if they're indigo kiddies and they're all conjunctions and there's no other aspect because everything's in adjacent signs. So say that I had a client once who had everything just in 3 signs of the zodiac, unos, dos, tres, just 3 signs. And the only aspect that was formed sextile. So keep in mind that when you're working with someone, don't focus just on the challenging aspects, because they can know all about those anyway. Bring to the fore the things that are in their chart that are less challenging, because they can rest on those laurels. They can work with those and put the focus on the positives in their chart, not the challenging aspects and negative, but they can get strength from those parts of their chart. And sometimes people can get strengths from their squares and their oppositions. Sometimes they need to have that challenge, that internal challenge within themselves to be able to say, oh, well, I managed to overcome this, or I resolved that, or I solved the other. So going back to Eckhart Tolle, life versus life situation, your life is your chart. Your life situation is the transits that come past at any given time, and obviously also the family that you're born into, because they've got an enormous impact in your growing up and how your life pans out. Recognizing, of course, that if you were in a family atmosphere that wasn't conducive to happiness, it could be that your chart indicates that that's something that you were, inverted commas, born and fated to have. And so then you have to ask yourself the rhetorical question, which you never get the answer to. Well, why did I decide to be born into this lifetime when it's so flipping horrible? 9 times out of 10, people are born into challenging lives so that they can survive the challenging life and either keep that to themselves or be able to share that with others and help others that are also in challenging situations. So your life is your chart, and find the life that's in there. I mean, in Judy's case, she is so much a Sagittarius. She'll just say it. She won't hold back from it. And that's part of why people love what she does and who she is and how she is as a person. It's such a sad thing that we haven't got the exact time, we haven't got any time of birth, but hey. Okay, so we've done Judi Dench's chart. I thought it would be good to compare her chart to 2 other people that were born on exactly the same date, just to demonstrate that even though you might be born on the same day as someone else, your life might pan out completely differently. And moving on from the concept of Eckhart Tolle and your life and your life situation, did these other people born on the same day, did they have that same energy within their chart that Judi Dench has? So the first person we're going to, second chart, but the next person we're going to look at is a guy called Wayne Weiler, Weiler. So he's born exactly the same date, 9th of December 1934. Now, because he's born in the US, we've got exact birth data. Hooray! Which makes life a hell of a lot easier. Now, according to Wikipedia and various other racing sites, Wayne Alois Wheeler was an American race car driver. He started as a dirt track driver in Arizona in 1951, and he drove in the USAC Championship Car Series from 1958 to 1961 with 19 starts. He finished in the top 10 times, with his best finish in 3rd position in 1960 at Phoenix. He completed the Indianapolis 500 race in 1960-61 with a best finish of 15th in 61. He suffered a severe accident in a USAC sprint car race in, I can't pronounce it, Terre Haute, Indiana, on the June 11th, 61. So I've got some dates, hooray. And despite many erroneous reports stating that the accident ended his career, he returned to race, just not nationally or in the ASAC any longer. He raced primarily in Arizona and in midgets. From the late 1960 through to 1973, he remained active as an owner and manager in auto racing up until his death, and he died age 70 from a heart attack. Now, because we've got two dates on there and we got his natal chart, it's like hurrah, hurrah, hurrah. So let's just talk about his chart for a minute. So he now, we haven't got an ascendant for Judy, but we do have ascendant for this guy called Wayne. He's got a Scorpio ascendant with Jupiter. So the ascendant is 10 degrees Scorpio, and Jupiter, which is the ruling planet to his sun sign, because it's the same combo of planets as Judy. He's got Scorpio ascendant 10 degrees Scorpio and Jupiter 12 degrees Scorpio. He's got Jupiter right on his ascendant. That's pretty lucky flipping planet to have. All the other planets are in the same sign. So Mercury's in Sagittarius, Sun's in Sagittarius in the second. So Mercury's in the first, beg your pardon. Sun's in Sagittarius in the second, along with Venus. Third house contains his moon 23 degrees into Capricorn. Fourth house is Saturn in the sign of Aquarius. Sixth house is Uranus retrograde in Aries. Seventh, he's got Chiron, which is in Gemini. Ninth, he's got Pluto retrograde in Cancer. 10th, he's got his MC, equal house, that's where it's going to be. Neptune is 14 degrees Virgo in the 11th, along with Mars 29 degrees, and his 12th house is empty. Now, we've only got two actual dates, and this is his best finish. So what was going on for him in his lifetime? What planet was the, I don't know if the opportune's the right word, and it's unfortunate, fortunate, I don't know which way to express it, but depending on when you were born and the time of day, you either will be or won't be affected by an outer planet that might go cruising over your ascendant for a considerable amount of time. And because he was born with Neptune in the sign of Virgo, when he got to the date of this grand race, now I think the date's the 20th of November 1960, so that's according to a magazine that's about the particular races that happened. This is the date that the series of races, which started earlier on in 1960, this is finished, and I think he was in on the last day, but please don't quote me. But anyway, the point is that during that year, anyway, the year of 1960, Neptune is now on his ascendant. So on the 20th of November, when the race is all finished, and he came third, which was a very good result for him, that's his best result he ever had. Neptune, which you wouldn't really think of as a planet that would sort of, what's the word now, would assist you in any way. But Jupiter and Neptune are friendly to each other. Those are Jupiter's the ruling planet to old ruler to Pisces, and Neptune's the modern one. But he's got it in Scorpio, so don't come too close. And Neptune now on that date transiting is 9 degrees Scorpio. Okay, so this is when he has his best win. Mercury's there as well, so that's always going to help. And the Sun is there as well. So those are all going to assist his ascendant. Now, if the date that I've got was correct, the Moon is also in Sagittarius, so that's a nice transit to have. Now, this wasn't, well, it would be stressful because he's racing, but this isn't as stressful, obviously, as when he had his crash. So we've got the date for that as well, which is fabulous. So let's go to his accident. So on the date he had his accident, which was the 11th of June 1960, and I can't find, you go search for things, you never find them. I can't find the exact write-up in a online report about what happened, because it happened in 1961. The internet wasn't invented. Somebody would have had to have sat down and copied it. I haven't. Who's going to do that? Anyway. So he has his accident, and now Neptune, which was conjunct to his ascendant when he had his victorious win, coming third, that's great, that's in the top three. Neptune is now retrograde, and it's 8 degrees retrograde, and his ascendant is 10 degrees. Okay, so you have to sort of ask the question, what was Neptune, inverted commas, sort of trying to tell him? You know, maybe use your intuition. Who knows? I'm not going to say one way or the other. Saturn was retrograde, 29 degrees Capricorn. His moon is 23 degrees Capricorn. So obviously soon after he has the accident, Saturn is going to retrograde and go past his moon. But he recovered from this awful accident. The moon is transiting moon is in his 7th. Transiting Jupiter is retrograde. So we've got Neptune retrograde, Saturn retrograde, Jupiter retrograde. Jupiter's retrograding in Aquarius. Chiron is retrograde, and I don't think that's doing too much. It's sort of opposition to his Neptune, is that right? His Neptune natal is 14, yes, and transiting Chiron is 6 degrees, so it's not far from his natal Neptune. Moon's in Taurus in his 7th, Sun's in Gemini, obviously, because it's June. Mercury's in Cancer in his, it's just his 8th house. Transiting Mercury's 9 degrees, yeah, so it's in his 8th house, 6th birth, death. And transiting Mars and Uranus are in Leo, up in his 10th. So it didn't destroy his career, but it meant that he couldn't compete in the big games anymore. And transiting Pluto's in the sign of Virgo. But this was a recovery for him. He didn't compete to the things that he'd had before, but he survived. Lucky sausage. And then, so I hate to do somebody's whole life in a couple of seconds, but I'm just proving points here and helping you understand a little bit about things. So he dies of a heart attack, and we've got the date of that, which is the 13th of October 2005. So what sort of knocks him out of the world? You know, what planet was it that helped him pass over? We're transiting Mercury, because he dies in October. Transiting Mercury is in Scorpio. It's not conjunct to his ascendant, but it's getting there. So Mercury is 6 degrees and his ascendant is 10. The Sun, Jupiter in the 12th. He has no planets in his 12th. Saturn's exactly on the highest point in his chart. So transiting Saturn is 9 degrees. So that's actually in his 9th house, because his 10th house doesn't start till we get to 10 degrees. Transiting Chiron is 27 degrees Capricorn. So it's not quite on his moon. But the transiting moon is 19 degrees Aquarius, and his natal Saturn is 23 degrees. So the moon is 19, Saturn's in the 4th. I don't know if he died at home. And now transiting Neptune is in the sign of Aquarius, and that's retrograde. And Mars is retrograde in his 7th. So when he had his accident, the moon was transiting through his 7th in the sign of Taurus, and when he dies, Mars is retrograding through his 7th. So there's 3 planets are retrograding when he has his accident. 3 planets again are retrograding. But I thought it was interesting how when he had his accident, Neptune transiting was very, very near to his ascendant and was retrograding. When he had his successful thing, it was going direct. So, you know, could his astrologer have advised him, you know, don't do this particular race because Neptune's now retrograding? I don't know. You know, would that be a bit of advice that we give someone? And our last chart example, same birth data, born on the same day, but this guy is born with a Sagittarius ascendant. So his name's John McCracken, and he was an artist. And I'm saying was, both of these people have now passed whilst Judi Dench is still alive. He's got a Sagittarius ascendant because he was born same date, 9th of December 1934. He's born at 6:51 in the morning. He's got a Sagittarius ascendant at 11 degrees, the Sun's 16 and Venus is 21 in the 1st. His moon's in the 2nd, his Saturn's in the 3rd, his Uranus is in the 5th, his Chiron's in the 6th, his Pluto's in the 8th, and in his 10th he's got Neptune and Mars, the same as the other two examples. He's got them in his 10th. So he's definitely got Sun square Neptune, and Moon is making a nice trine to Mars. Now, this guy was quite interesting, being an artist, because I've read up about all these people, but obviously before I did the podcast, and he taught art. He was an artist himself, but he also came out with something that made him, inverted commas, famous. Now, on his Wikipedia page, it says that was an American minimalistic visual artist. He lived and worked in Los Angeles, Santa Fe, New Mexico, and New York. He lived and worked in Los Angeles, Santa Fe, New Mexico, and New York. Okay, so he lived in 3 different places, ? Lived and worked, obviously. Okay, so he graduated from high school, served in the Navy before enrolling in the California College of Arts and Crafts, earning a BFA in 1962 and completing most of his work for an MFA. Lots of info about where he taught and what he did. He was a sculptural work graduate student at California College of Arts and Crafts. I won't read the whole thing, but he definitely was an artist. And as much as Judy's into acting, John's into his art, and Wayne was into his racing, these 3 people kept their same inverted commas jobs for the whole of their lives. Yeah, they didn't alter what they did. And it says on his Wikipedia page, in 1966, McCracken generated his signature sculptural form, the plank, a narrow monochromatic rectangular board format that leans at an angle against the wall, the site of the painting, while simultaneously entering into the 3-dimensional realm and physical space of the viewer. He conceived the plank idea in a period when artists across the stylistic spectrum were combining aspects of painting and sculpture in their work, and many were experimenting with sleek, impersonal surfaces. So this is a quote from him. "I see the plank as existing between 2 worlds, the floor representing the physical world of standing objects, trees, cars, buildings, and human bodies, and the wall representing the world of imagination, illusionistic painting spaces, and human mental space." Now, if you're going to use the word imagination and illusionist, what planet are you going to be considering? Well, you're going to be considering Neptune. So he himself has got his Neptune in the 10th, and I just wanted to demonstrate this chart. So I've done where the major outer planets were during the year 1966 that he got this. I can't find the exact date that he first did it, so I've just used 1st of June 1966 because I want to show you, if you want to go and look at the show notes. But I'm going to tell you, so I'd mentioned already, he's got Neptune in the 10th. He gets this whole concept when transiting Uranus and Pluto are now conjunct. So Uranus is 15 degrees and Pluto is 15 degrees, so they're conjunct, and they are also conjunct to his natal Neptune, which is 14 degrees Virgo, 34 minutes. So, and they would be like that for the whole of that year. Might have done some retrogrades here and there, possibly, but I thought it was quite. Sometimes astrologers get excited about things. It's like, wow, he gets this illusionistic idea about this concept when 2 transiting planets are absolutely conjunct, boomf, to his natal Neptune, and his natal Neptune is square to his sun sign. So this is what I mentioned earlier about you can have the challenges, but they can bring joy. So this was his big light bulby thing. Transiting Neptune's not far away from his natal Jupiter, so transiting Neptune's in Scorpio, just as it was with Wayne on his ascendant. But in John's case, it's now hovering around his natal Jupiter, which is natally in the natal 12th house. So those 2 planets are friendly. Jupiter and Neptune, they're mates. They're forming a conjunction that's a little bit wide by the time we get to June, but it's still in the sign of Scorpio. So Neptune's 20 degrees and his natal Jupiter's 12. So it's 8 degrees off, but it's going to retrograde back a bit to then. Because I don't know the exact date. All I know is the year, so all I can look at is outer planets. And I just thought, astrologers get excited about things. So that's a transit that happens with him, but it doesn't knock him off course or stop him from doing what he feels he's come into the world to do. Okay, he's obviously got an understanding of himself and what he does or doesn't enjoy. Judi Dench loves acting. She wouldn't even consider doing something else. The Wayne guy, there was no way he was going to stop his racing, even though it gets this awful crash. This guy has his inspirational moment. Now that moves on for the rest of his life. He teaches, he does more, he sort of gets bigger in his field. He does get quite ill towards his death. So we've got the date of his death. He's ill for a whole year leading up to his death, which is the 8th of April 2011. Transiting planets on that date, the moon, the transiting moon, is exactly conjunct. So the moon's 6 degrees and his natal Chiron is 6 degrees in his 6th house of health. So he was not, in inverted commas, enjoying the last year of his life, and he finally passes away on the 8th of April 2011. My dad was a Saggy, and he wasn't what's the word? Happy's the wrong word, but he was disappointed about dying at the age that he did. So he didn't sort of get into the swing of the death thing, which some people can. He wasn't necessarily resistant to it. He just went totally downhill. That can happen with Saggies. There's nothing to inspire them anymore. But anyway, but that's the major thing. There's nothing else on there that is exactly conjunct to anything else, but I just thought that was, it was Chiron, the wounded healer, and the moon just illustrating that for him, that he passes in his 6th house. Now, I could have used the charts of anybody in particular. I could be using your chart, but what I'd like you to do is to consider the two differences between your chart and what happens to you. And that learning what your chart is, that could take absolutely ages. But once you've got it off to a better degree and you understand, well, I've got this in this sign, and obviously because I've got this in this sign, it'd be better if I did this or if I did the other. Or if you've got a planet in a certain sign, I'll feel happier if I do these things that my sign indicates is the best thing for me to do. And try not to get yourself into head twists about, well, when my chart says I should do this and I'm not doing that. It's probably not the right time for that to happen. Because there's more than one way of looking at a chart as well. Anyway, the way that I'm teaching you, that's just from my personal experience, but that might not be somebody else's. Okay, Mary, so now I know you're going to be asking the question, okay, Mary, so I know about my chart and all the rest of it. What do I do when the shit hits the fan? What do I do under stressful situations? That's where pausing and going back into your chart again and reading it and understanding it and getting it firmer in your mind. Meditation obviously helps. Not everybody's even capable of doing that or even wants to do it. But having a small amount of space and time where you're not worrying about whatever might be happening and are looking or asking the universe for some solutions to issues. If it's a repeating pattern, that's something that's happened to you a number of times before, then you have to ask yourself the question, why does this keep happening? Is it something that is internal in my chart that I need to resolve? Or is it is it every time some planet comes past, every time Venus comes and conjuncts your Mercury, you decide to write a book and then a few months later give up doing it or whatever? Relationships, those are complex. There's no easy way to say, this person's going to be compatible with me, because somebody could be incredibly compatible astrologically and then their life circumstances are totally different from yours and then the relationship just doesn't take off. And studying your family's charts as well, so the nearest relatives that you can find their data for, have a look at those, because then you see that person as their chart, not as an issue or a problem. I mean, I've discussed lots of people that have been in the news, that Trump and Elon Musk, and looked at their charts. Covered Boris Johnson during the pandemic. He drove me crazy. Astrology allows us that little distance from the person, and the whole language that is used, the signs of the zodiacs in and of themselves, the wonderful 12 signs of the zodiac, and the imagery that comes with them is beautiful. It's poetical. It allows us to have something other than I'm just a person. I'm just a 5 foot person, which is what I am, 5 foot. But I've got this, I've got that, I've got the other in my chart. It's a joy to explore someone's chart and to explore it with them, not for them. Don't interpret someone's chart for them. Prompt a question from something you can see in their chart. How do you feel about, you've got this square between this planet, how do you feel about this, that and the other? And they go, oh, blah, 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 blah. They might be reconciled to certain things that are in their charts. And a student asked me this week about something particular, what happens if you see dung, dung, dung in your chart? And I said, you're going to see loads of things. You are going to come across, as an astrologer, the whole spectrum of life that could possibly exist. Birth, death, marriage, divorce, children, infertility, the works. If you're working with people, you're going to come across every combo of anything that could possibly happen. And that's why I suggest that you do a counselling skills qualification of some sort, so that you're safe in the work that you do. Get supervision, that's really important. If you've seen 50 charts in a month and everybody's got a similar issue, you've got to be careful that you don't pick their issues up. So you need to talk the chart through with another professional, not in a coffee shop. Just to remind you that I do supervision. And you can, in your practice, build it how you want it to be. I can give you tips and suggestions and stuff, but look at your 6th house, look at your 10th house. Consider your ascendant, because that's the first thing your client's going to come across when you meet them. They are going to come across your ascendant. And is your ascendant compatible with meeting lots of people and working with them? If you've got a Scorpio ascendant with Pluto right slap bang on your ascendant, are you truly going to want to meet face to face lots of people that are in difficulties, that are asking you for solutions? And would you want to do that you're not going to want to do that in a public place. If you did do that, you'd want to do that in an anonymous account at an address that nobody could go back to. So consider your own chart as well when you're setting up your practice, and how is it going to be? Where's the best bits of my chart? What can I focus on? What will help me in doing this? Yeah. So I think it's a never-ending learning curve, astrology. As I say, you're not going to reach a stage where you wake up and you know absolutely everything. So I want to encourage you in what place that you're at, where you are at now. You've got this far already. I mean, if you've got up to whatever episode we are now, 428, thank you very much for being on this long journey with me. It's wonderful that you've listened to every episode. I know there's a few people that have. There's some people that haven't. They've jumped in at later episodes. But thank you for being with me for this length of time. So today we've been talking about birth charts and how it's important to consider your natal chart, get a deeper understanding of it, and with your clients as well. The transits will or won't affect someone, but recognizing that if you stay within yourself, then anything that might get thrown at you from life, the universe and everything, stay within your chart and yourself, and it will give you the strength to be able to pass through more easily any challenges that life might throw at you. So I hope you have a fab week, and I'm back next week. If you've got your chart and you'd like me to have a look at it, then by all means ping me an email, mary@maryenglish.co.uk, and I'll see you next week. Bye bye now.